All right, hi everybody, we're back and it's time to talk about some pseudoscience. Pseudo means fake or inauthentic, so it's not real science we're going to be talking about here. So what is it? What we mean when we say something is pseudoscientific is, for one thing, that the claims that they're making are based on uncontrolled evidence. There are too many factors that can be playing a role in the outcome for us to draw a rational conclusion, a logical scientific conclusion when we're dealing with pseudoscientific evidence. Another thing that's really common in pseudoscience is that the pseudoscientist will claim that they have evidence, that they have data to support what they're saying, but they'll never produce it for publication. They'll never let another researcher look at their data in the raw form. They don't present at conferences. They have this magic store pile of evidence that they're not willing to really share. If they do share the evidence, no one else is able to replicate those results. So you have a person who reports something at a conference, and then other researchers say, well, that sure is an interesting claim you're making. I'm going to go see if I can get that outcome in my own study, and no one else can get the same outcome. The one researcher was able to produce the outcome and no one else could. Another little footnote comment is that a lot of times pseudoscientists will denigrate the scientific community. They'll say, well, you guys have all drunk the Kool-Aid. Sidebar, are you guys familiar with that phrase? That phrase is thrown around a lot, and I don't know if everybody understands what drunk the Kool-Aid means. It's a reference to a mass suicide that happened in Guyana, which is on the northern end of South America. A cult of Americans followed their leader down to this compound down in Guyana, and to prove their loyalty and their belief in him, they all got together in their big communal area and drank this cyanide-laced South American version of Kool-Aid. And so today, if somebody seems to have just accepted some perspective or some claim and don't seem to be doing any kind of questioning or anything, people will say that they've drunk the Kool-Aid. Pseudoscientists oftentimes say that scientists have drunk the Kool-Aid, that they are controlled by the AMA or the APA or whatever other group they want to make fun of. They'll say that there's really no need to do controlled data. You guys are just being too rigid, and you're just, if you understood how important this was, you wouldn't waste your time trying to collect data. We need to move now. We need to act now. It's not the time to think, it's the time to do. They say that kind of thing. All right, so how to spot pseudoscience. If you run my slides as a slideshow, you can click this link, and it's a nice, succinct, like 5-minute piece that talks about the things that are really characteristic of pseudoscientific thinking. If you pause me and go watch that, you can come back. Otherwise, spoiler alert, I'm going to say something that reveals the contents of that video. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you either left and went and watched it, or you don't mind having spoiler alerts happen. Okay, so spoiler alert. One of the things that he said in the video about spotting pseudoscience is being aware of the source. So I received this email from the the Association for Psychological Science. When I first joined it, it was called the American Psychological Society, and they changed their name. Anyway, I got this email, and I just copied and pasted it. All this bolding was present, the picture was there, all of this is how it was. I just sort of smushed it down to make it fit on a slide. The key thing is that they are making a case for pronouncing the initial P in psychology. They said, psycholinguists speculate that the non-pronunciation of the P can be traced to none other than James McKeen Cattell, which we stuck a picture of over here, who idiosyncratically left the sound off, and to his students and colleagues who imitated his affected way of saying psychology in the hope of posthumously getting a Cattell sabbatical award. Thus, the silent P has its origins in sycophantism, much like the Castilian lisp. Since Cattell's time, the P has remained silent. And then it says it's become the trend among both professionals in the field and lay people alike to once again pronounce the P. It says the change would better distinguish our association from other organizations whose members continue anachronistically and we think pretentiously to leave the P silent. In the halls of psychology departments and at meetings, it will no longer be difficult to tell who is a member of which organization. How you pronounce psychology will be like a badge of loyalty. Are you a scientist or are you something else? Okay. I got this in my inbox. I'm serious. I got it from the normal source that I normally get newsletters from APS, and I'm like, what in the heck is this? Until I looked at the date, and you'll notice it was April 1st, 2010. And I was like, oh. Sometimes scientists like to play little practical jokes. And so if you hear something odd or shocking, check the date and see whether it is a prank. I was reading an issue of Discover magazine. You may notice that's one of my normal reads. It keeps me up on other things outside of psychology. And they had a little, one-page report on these new smog cleansing air brushes that they had in this gigantic factory in LA that was going to cleanse the air in the LA Valley. And I was like, what the heck are you guys talking about? It showed this factory with these enormous intake fans and then these like filters and then outtake, you know, like where the clean air would blow out. And I was like, what is this? And it wasn't until the next issue that a bunch of the letters to the editor said, haha, you got me. That April issue with the smog cleaning thing. Yeah. So you have to look, if it is coming from a scientific source, you have to look at the date, because a lot of times scientists think it's funny to mess with people like that. I've got to say, I've been gotten a number of times. Okay, so back to seriousness though. So hopefully you watched the video on how to tell pseudoscience. Now let's talk about the difference between junk science and pseudoscience. A lot of times people incorrectly use these terms interchangeably. They are in fact different. Junk science carries a political motive. So when conducting real science, which junk science does, it collects data, it analyzes data, it does everything following the scientific method, except for that there's a political motive. It's either financial or power driven or something like that that drives the research. So it uses the scientific method correctly. It's the interpretations that are suspect in junk science. In junk science, because you're trying to curry favor with whoever the current administration is, you're maybe hiding, is a good way to say, results that are contrary to what the current administration asks for, whoever they are. And you're really only putting forward for scrutiny the results that are supportive of the perspectives of the current administration, whoever it is. It could be financial motives. Whoever your funding source is, you go ahead and you squelch results that would undermine your financial benefactor, and you only put forward that stuff that would support what they believe. So it could be funding sources. It could be your own personal motivation. I mean, sometimes we are so desperate to find evidence that supports our beliefs that we move over into the junk science realm and we start to do faulty research. We only present the results that support what we believe, and we keep a bushel over the things that are contrary to what we believe. Pseudoscience, on the other hand, is not real science. It doesn't follow the scientific method. Like I said in the previous slides, it doesn't see the need for actual objective data. I mean, why would I conform to the evil research complex that you guys have all gotten involved in, right? So the thing about pseudoscience is that sometimes it's a true believer who truly does think that they found the solution to some problem or can really help people in some way. Sometimes it's a true believer. But other times it's just an outright charlatan, someone who really is just trying to make a buck off of other people. And so they pretend like this new treatment works because they want you to buy the treatment. And they know full well it doesn't work. It's salt water. It doesn't do anything, but I don't care. I want the money. So I pretend like I have all these scientific evidence that I'm not going to show you, because why are you questioning me? But the truth is, I know full well it doesn't work. Both of them are bad. I mean, the true believer, at least you got to say, well, at least they're trying. They just are doing sloppy work. The charlatan, of course, we can all agree that's bad. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a little break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about, so what? What's wrong with pseudoscience? What's the difference?